talked about sewing, and you cannot sew in a Maseh Uman, and a head yod therefore can sew regularly, because a head yod is like people who stitch like us who can't sew a straight line, and an Uman has to do it out of what's called machliv, like the teeth of a dog, so that they're very irregular. The Uman, the tailor, has to do it in a regular fashion, because otherwise that would be considered Maseh Uman, Meleches Uman. And then the last part of the Mishnah said, and that's the piece we're going to do, it says Mesargin Atamito, and Rabbi Yossi Omer Af Matchin. So there you can Mesargin Atamitos means you can
tighten, you said. Is that what you said?
Actually, you can weave.
Weave. All right.
Moed, the ropes that were under the bed, which formed almost looks like apparently some kind of almost hammock support.
It was like the bed spring, like maybe like today's box spring, except it didn't have.
Correct. They didn't have springs. It just was more of a weave.
Yeah.
And this is, of course, we're assuming. So the Rishonim say this is l'tzorach moed. You have to sleep on it, right? Some suggest that the reason actually may be related to something else, davar, but if you don't set the bed up properly, the whole gizmo is going to fall apart or become worse. So you can do this. It's called Mesargim Asamitos. And Rabbi Yossi Omer Af Mematchim, you can even tighten up not only sew them if they're broken or have to be put in, but you can even tighten up the ropes, even though you could use it as it is without tightening. Nonetheless, you can tighten up the ropes. Now, what would you do if you couldn't tighten up the ropes? How would you sleep on the bed? So the Gemara will tell us you could put something underneath it. Let's say the ropes like that are underneath a board or cushions or something ad hoc to keep it, to flatten it out, to make sure it was even. So
who said you could even tighten it? Or what?
So that's how.
Rabbi who?
That was Rabbi Yossi. So there's actually a machlokas. What in the schos, what Rabbi Yossi says is Rabbi Yossi says af mimatchim, or which means you can.
Is that what our Mishnah says?
No. Our Mishnah, the version of our Mishnah says mimatchim. Af mimatchim means you can you can tighten it. You can make the ropes. Right. You can even tighten it. If you say the version just mimatchim, which is what our version is, which is what our Gemara says, okay, then it means he's saying you can only do that. You can only tighten them. You cannot sew the ropes together.
Big difference.
That's a big difference. So in other words, the way we're going to learn it in our Gemara, which is not the way it's printed in the Mishnayos, is that this is Rabbi Yossi is more machmir than the Chachamim. The Chachamim say that you can even weave. You can weave the different pieces of the rope underneath it to give structure to the bed or support to the bed. Rabbi Yossi says you can't weave it, but you can actually just tighten up the ropes. The ropes are there. It's a little less work. It's not that much hamalacha. So the Gemara has this whole discussion, and it's complicated only because the Gemara is not quite sure what Mamatchin means and what Mesargin means. So we've given you the standard explanation. One is the sewing, the cross weave of the ropes underneath the bed is called Mesargin. The Matchim is tightening up the ropes. But you'll see there's some kind of discussion how much actually it is. Maybe Matchim is only not cross weaving, just a single weave.
Right.
So one opinion is you can do a cross weave, one opinion is you can do a single weave. Or maybe the first opinion is only a single weave and the second opinion is only tightening up. So that's a real discussion here. It's more of a technical discussion about what each thing really means than trying to tie all the brises together. So it's stuff Yudam and Aleph.
By the way, was the Sargim is like Kipasruga, which is
a sew.
I think maybe the word Well, I'm saying the concept that he says is that they actually interweave these ropes, right?
Correct. So it's the same thing. It's crocheted. Okay. So it means a tight enough weave that's going to hold the bed. In other words, don't think of it as a hammock. Think of it as something really solid.
Right.
So says the Gemara, Yudam and Aleph, it's about 6 lines in the bottom, on top, Mesargim etamitos, my Mesargim and my Mamatchim. Okay, so what do these words mean? The unusual words. Gios Rav Dimi, and Rav Dimi came, and Rav Dimi, we've pointed out, travels back and forth from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel. Right. So when he came back to Bavel, he brought Torah Eretz Yisrael with him. Gios Rav Dimi Omar, he said, Pli Ibo Rav Chirba Abba Ravasi. There was a machlokas between these two people. Chavayim Mishmei the Chizkiyo, Rav Yochanan. They both said the name of Chizkiyo and Rav Yochanan. So you see, Rav Yochanan is, of course, the most famous Amor in Eretz Yisrael. He's bringing back what he heard in Eretz Yisrael.
But there's a dispute, right?
But there's a dispute. So he's not quite sure who says what, but it's not important. There are two opinions. Chanamar Mesargim Shesi ve'erev. Shesi ve'erev means the complete cross weave.
The warp and the woof.
The warp and the woof, right? So in other words, the way the loom would go, so when it was finished, right, you had them sewed together, right, and were tight. By the way, Shesiv Erev is usually the term that's used in rabbinic literature in the Middle Ages for the cross.
Oh, really?
Okay. The term Salem is a much later term, right? Comes from Selim, which is of course an image,
right?
Because it was an image on the cross. But when they talk about the actual symbol of the cross, you use Shesiv Erev. Probably was less of an in-your-face kind of thing for the Mishimad who were trying to censor the books.
Right.
So, but that's really what it is. It's a cross beam. So if one opinion says what's Masargin is Shesiv Erev, it's a complete weave. And what's therefore Mamatchim was Meshesi below Erev. And Rabbi Yossi, who is more Machmir, he says you can only hang the ropes one way.
Right.
In other words, the more cooler ways you have to put the ropes together and interweave them. That's a lot of work.
They'd be strong.
But this is you just hang them one way so that it would be an ad hoc kind of help to maintain the stability of the bed. Okay, that's one opinion. Chanomar, the other opinion is Masargin Shesi below Erev. No, the more makel one is only one way of the ropes. If the ropes are loose, then you can actually tighten them up. Which means that, and as I told you, the approach to the Gemara is that and nothing more.
Right, so and even the first one says, even Srugim is only one direction.
Correct.
Right? And the other is, right, that you can tighten them, let's
Correct.
say. He's one direction.
So we have two opinions. The question Gemara tries to understand which is really the more correct opinion based upon brises that relate to this topic. So Gemara says, Ini, is this really true? That the second opinion is that the most machmir is shesi below erev, and the more makel one is you can only tighten them up.
Right.
That can't be. What's the question? But Tani Rabbi Taraf Tachlifa Barshal, who says B'shavin, both opinions. In other words, both opinions in the Mishnah, the Chachamim and Rabbi Yossi agree she'ein mafshilim chaval l'chatchila. That you can't begin to just hang the things initially. You can, if you have the ropes there, you can tie them together. In other words, if they're hanging, you can string them together. You can't begin by simply just putting ropes out was a very laborious kind of task. So therefore, you can't mafshilim l'chavalim l'chatchila. You can't unwrap them and put them out for sure, according to both opinions. Either you could just do a shesi. Well, we see Sagmar's bishlam alamandiam masagim shesi ve'erev umamatchem shesi below erev. According to the first opinion, the first interpretation, that the maker one is you can do the double string of both, and the more machman one is you're going to do one side. So I understand. I understand why Rav Tachlifa Barshal says, and they both agree you can't put ropes out initially. If you have the ropes, you can either double tie them, organ them, or you can only do a shesi below erev. But you can't begin from nothing. Okay, he said you can't just put the ropes together, and mafshilin actually means mafshilin is more like to roll them out, probably even stringing them together, so you have a very strong kind of rope. That's a really lot of work. So elamandi amar mesargim shesi below erev. But according to the second opinion, the second interpretation, what the machlokas is, which is the more makel one is you can only do the one-way stitch. If it was weak, if it was loose, you could tighten it up. So now, what does it mean to say that Rav Tachlifa Barshal says you cannot make the ropes together? Hashta shesi ve'erev amrot lo chavalim l'chadchila miboy. No, according to both opinions here, you can't even do a double stitch, the double weave. So surely you can't begin to make ropes all together. In other words, what Rav Tachlifa Barshal comes to say that there is a step higher, it's a level higher that no one will agree you can do. So if you say that the highest step of the Mormeka step is a double rope, and the lower step is a single rope, so I understand you can't start the ropes all together. But if the highest level is only one way, and the lower level is tightening them up, so what would they say? They both agree? You can't do Shesi V'Erev. There's a line missing. So the Gemara says kasha. So that's a kasha. So that's and the Gemara goes on. Amalei Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Rabbi Chir bar Avin. So mi ika lamandi amar masargim shesi below erev. Now we're asking a question on the second opinion again. Is there anyone who holds that Mesargin is really one way of the stitch.
Right.
The Yotznan, another there's a Mishnah here in Masechet Kelim. Rabbi Meir Omer, when it's talking about when Kalim talks about when things become utensils that are makabel tuma.
Okay.
As long as you have an unformed piece of raw material, it's not going to be makabel tuma. The question is when is the completion? When is it completed enough to be considered a kli?
Right.
Now think of a kli as not necessarily a utensil. Anything that's completed. Begadim are klis. There's a kalim. So a bed, which is also completed, would be a kli.
Okay.
So Rabbi Meir is describing when does the bed become considered a bed.
Right.
So Rabbi Meir Omer Hamita Mishiyisrog Ba Shlosha Batim. Okay. She says when is the bed completed? When Yisrog, that's the same word as Mesargin, right? Really? So what's Mesargin? You have Shlosha Batim means 3 complete stitches. Each a BAYT is a complete unit. So in other words, you see that the Mishnah there is identifying the word misargin with a double thing, and it's saying so if you only have one double thing, it's not yet a kli. 2 is not a kli because it can unravel. 3 is going to be considered kli. So what's important for us is not 1, 2, 3. Right. What's important for us, misargin, is really refers to the double warp and woof.
Right.
So the Gemara says, so therefore, can there really be anyone who disagrees? In other words, it's a rhetorical question.
Right.
This is which means it must be that Masargin means Shesi v'Erev. That's the first opinion. So it's like the second question on the second opinion. First question we had was, why would Rabbi Yosef Bar Tachlifa say you can't unravel the ropes?
Right.
Rabbi Yosef Bar Tachlifa should say you can't do Shesi v'Erev.
Right.
So that's on the second opinion. This is also a question on the second opinion because you see Masargin means Shesi v'Erev, a complete warp and woof.
Right.
So the Gemara gives an answer. So or the Gemara reinterprets it. Kiyasa Ravin, when Ravin comes, Ravin, by the way, also comes from where? Herzl to Bavel. Comes a little bit later. Okay. So we have all these people traveling back and forth periodically, but Rav Dimi is earlier and Ravin is later. But they also figure constantly or continually through Shas, they're bringing Torah to the Bavel. Kiyasa Ravin, when Ravin came, Omar said, it follows. B'mesargin kuli amalo pligi the Shesi v'Erev. Everybody agrees the Masargin is Shesi v'Erev. Because you see the Mishnah that we just quoted right a moment ago, says there's the Misar Yisrog Shlosha Batim.
Absolutely.
Elaki pligi, the only machlokas is not about Masargin. Machlokas is what's the more machmir approach of Rabbi Yossi. Our Mishnah mentions 2 opinions.
Right.
Either Shesi v'Erev or
just Shesi.
Either Shesi without Erev or maybe just tightening up the bed.
Right, absolutely.
So everybody's going to agree that the explanation of the words Masargin
is both.
Is Shesi v'Erev. The only machlokas is about the other opinion, the more makel opinion of Rav Yossi. Ki pligi b'matchim. What does b'matchim mean? Mar savar b'matchim Shesi below Erev. So one opinion is Shesi below Erev. Mar savar Shem haya rafui mematcho. That if it was weak, it was loose, you can tighten it up.
Right.
Okay, so that's the correlation on the corollary in all this.
That sounds good.
Yep. Okay. Now
there's a meisvei.
There's a meisvei. That's why it's a very technical piece of more trying to understand what Masargin and Mamatche means. Meisvei. Masargin as amita. The ain't tzarich lo moshe mematchim. So there are 3 opinions in this brisa. It's very funny because they're each kind of opposing. One opinion says you can Masargin as amita.
Right.
And surely you could do mamatchim. Okay. Opinion number 1. Div Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yossi Omer mamatchim avalo masargin. Rabbi Yossi, by the way, same person in our Mishnah, right? Our Mishnah, he says mamatchim avalo masargin. First opinion, by the way, looks like it's the opinion of the Chachamim. Second opinion looks like it's the opinion of Rabbi Yossi.
Wait. Rabbi Meir, but it says
Rabbi Meir looks like our Chachamim, and it says you can do misargin.
Right.
And surely you can do mamatchim, which is less. So the first opinion of the Brisa is the opinion of the Chachamim in the Mishnah. Rabbi Yossi looks like he's really Rabbi Yossi, who says mamatchim avalo masargin.
Okay.
I haven't translated these words for you.
Right.
V'yesh omrim ein mamatchim kol ikar. Then there's a variation on this third opinion that says not only you can't do Shesi v'Erev, not only you can't do Masargin, you can't even do mamatchim. So it's more machmir than even Rabbi Yossi.
Absolutely.
The first opinion says you can do Masargin, which is the most makel. The second opinion, which is the machmir opinion in our Mishnah, which says you can do mamatchim, but you can't do Masargin.
Right.
Third opinion says you can't even do that.
What did our Mishnah itself say?
They had the first and second opinion. Masargin amitos, Rabbi Yossi, mamatchim.
I mean, the actual Mishnah said mamatchim.
Yeah, it says mamatchim. It says Masargin,
right?
And the second opinion is mamatchim.
Okay.
So it doesn't. So in other words, the third opinion is a more machmir opinion.
Where did you get such an opinion?
Well, now let's try to understand what the words mamatchim and masargin mean in terms of the more machmir person.
Okay.
So beishlam lamandi amar mamatchim shesi below erev. So according to the second opinion, that says, according to the first opinion, my mistake. According to the first opinion we gave him before, that we said Masargin is Shesi im Erev.
Right.
Mematchim is Shesi below Erev.
Right.
So I understand that can be now Yesh Omrim. So Hainu the Asi Yesh Omrim the Flugiv, the Yesh Omrim comes along to say you can't do Shesi in Erev, you can't do Shesi below Erev. You can't do any of these. What could you do?
Mematchim, you tighten it.
You can tighten it, but he's interpreting Mematchim. In other words, the whole machlok is what does Mematchim mean?
Right, that's what we're talking about.
So let's back up a step. The machlokas, we have two interpretations what mamatchim means. We said everybody now agrees, sorry to confuse you, everybody now agrees that masargin means shesi im erev.
That we seem to, everybody.
The machlokas in interpreting the words is mamatchim im shesi below erev, or does mamatchim mean tightening it up?
Right.
Tightening it up. Only tightening it up. So we're trying to see which of these makes more sense. How are we trying to, what's the test here? The test is the Yesh Omrim in this new Mishnah.
Right.
The Yesh Omrim says you can't even do Mamatchim.
Right, whatever that is.
Right. So according to the opinion that says that Masargin is Shesi im Erev, a full stitch, Mamatchim is the half stitch Shesi below Erev,
right.
What's the Yesh Omrim coming to say? You can't even do Mamatchim. What could you do?
Tighten.
You can tighten it. So that makes sense. The Yesh Omrim is now telling me there's a third thing you can do, which is to tighten it. First opinion says you can do everything. Second opinion, you can only do the half stitch. Third opinion says, Mr. Super Machmir, Yesh Omrim says, you can't do this, you can't do that. What could you do? You could tighten it up.
Right.
Okay. But according to the second opinion of Lamandi Omar, Shem Hoyerafi Mamatcha, but according to the second opinion about what the word Mamatcha means. So let's go through this now.
Right.
This is a three-way machlokes in this
this
Mishnah.
opinion.
Masargin means Masargin is Shesi im Erev.
Right.
Mematchim is only tightening it up.
Right.
So what does now the Yesh Omrim come to say?
That you can't
even tighten it up.
Even to tighten it up.
So you can't even tighten it up. So what can you do? How are you going to sleep on the bed? Right, how are you going to make it work? So the Gemara says, according to the second interpretation of Mamatchim, that was loose, you can tighten it up. Liyesh Omrim, Mimatcho Nami Lo. Mimatcho Nami Lo. Right. So according to Yesh Omrim means you can't even tighten it up.
Right.
So the Gemara says, yes, that's correct. According to the Yesh Omrim, you can't tighten it up. So how are you going to use the bed? Kavan the Efshel Amale B'Mane Lo Tachinan. Mane are like cushions. Bed cushions. So in other words, the third opinion says you can't even tighten it up. You want to sleep on the bed, so you get cushions and put it underneath the loose ropes, which will give it stability.
Right.
So in other words, you can sleep on the bed on Chol Moed, but you can either do tightening it up, and you can't fix the bed at all. Right? You can make it work for you for the night or two. How do you make it work? You're going to put cushions underneath it to give it more stability to the loose ropes. So in other words, right. So at the end of the day, we don't really have a definitive answer
as to what those terms really mean.
What the terms mean, right? The conclusion is that everybody says Masargim is going to be Shesi B'Erev.
Everybody agrees.
Everybody will agree to it. However, the opinion, which is by the way how the halacha paskins, Rabbi Yossi is a machlokas what it means. So Lamaisa, with the halacha paskins like Masargin, that you can do Shesi B'Erev. So you actually can weave the bed, the ropes in the bed, because that was considered, I told you, either was considered Simchas Yantif, or because you couldn't sleep on it, or what, as well as considered davar oven, maybe the bed would deteriorate if you didn't do the complete stitch. All right. Okay, that takes care of this. Now we come to our next Mishnah, which is going to leave sewing and talk about actually putting up stoves and ovens and mills and millstones. Okay, these were things that normally required work, but also had some kind of tzorach hamoed. So can you actually build these things on Yontif? I'm sorry, on Chol Hamoed, can you build and set up or fix a tanur and kirayim? Okay, because you're going to need it for Yontif to cook. That's for tanur v'kirayim. Rechayim is a type of mill, a millstone, right? Correct.
But so what's kirayim? What's kirayim?
Kirayim is a stove. There's a single tanur is a single oven, and a kirayim is a double oven. The two ovens together. So it's like, think of it as small size, big size. It's always the same halacha, tanur and kirayim. Right? It's actually the term is, I believe, in the Gemara, tanur v'kirayim yutatz. So it's all when they went to Moed, they brought back the utensils. They couldn't bring back the tanur v'kirayim. So
the Mishnah says ma'midim those things, meaning.
Right. And they were portable ovens, and when they took them outside in the summertime, they brought them inside in the rainy season. They were actually also needed to be put a foundation onto them when you took them outside. When you first set them down, you had to like use some kind of tar or pitch to keep them stable so they don't tip over. So some kind of adhesive that they put into the ground, whatever the ground was. And the Mishnah is telling us, therefore, that you can do this on Chol Hamoed.
So the ma'midim part, you think, is to put it like on some sort of
ma'midim really actually means to make it stand
base.
up, right? To stand it up. Mm-hmm. So you had to build some kind of base for it to stand up. In other words, first of all means that you can fix it, you can build it, and you can even be ma'midim, set it up in a way that creates stability. And you can put it together. Why? Because this is all about, the Mefarshim say, it's all about, you need it for cooking for Yontif. Correct. Okay. So you have, once again, tanur, kirayim. Tanur was a single stove. Kirayim, we could put two different pots inside. It was twice as big. And this is the halacha. So and rechayim is a millstone, or is the millstone.
Yeah.
Right. Good. Now, Rashi says, right. The question is how big this millstone is.
There's a picture of one here, but he doesn't tell you how big it is. He just says, Evan Rochev Shel Rechayim, so
right.
Like two, right? One sits on the grinds with the other, right?
Right, but you don't have to think of this so much as just a large grindstone. It could be even just a small one.
Rashi seems to suggest that the Kirayim is small.
The Kirayim is small?
That's what he seems to say.
Ma'midim tanur
Shefisas Shetei Davis.
Yeah, correct.
The tanur.
Tanur tocho cholol makom. Oh, maybe I have it backwards. Thank you. Okay, I reversed it. Thank you. Kira is one oven, and tanur is a double oven. Thank you. Okay, so I flipped them back. So and correct. Okay. So at any rate, one can make the ovens, one can set up the ovens, and one can also set up the rechayim, which is the mill to grind up the flour. Okay, also necessary for Yontif. Mm-hmm. Now, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, in mechabsin es rechayim batchila. Mechabsin means that you can actually. There's actually a discussion in the Gemara what the word mechabshin means. It's going to mean one of two things. It means you're dealing with a brand new millstone or brand new mill, and to do that, you had to make it work. You need to do two things. One is one stone had to be grooved.
Okay.
Because if the stones were flat, then the wheat's not going to get in there. Uh-huh. So you have to it has to be grooved that the wheat can sit. And as the groove goes over it, it's going to grind it. Okay? That created the friction and allowed the wheat to become flour inside. The other thing that had to be done in the millstone, the upper millstone had to have a hole in it, so that you could pour the grain in. Okay, you probably think of it as shooting, probably the modern type of machinery. This is very, very simple. So you had to drill a hole into the upper grindstone, and then as you use that, as it's going around, you're pouring the wheat in. The wheat comes in, it gets stuck under the grooves that are recessed, right? And as it goes around, it gets crushed by the grindstones. That's how it worked. So in other words, when you had a grindstone, when you had a mill, so there probably was periodic maintenance that you had to do. You had to set it up. But a new mill required these two things, which were more laborious than most of the other things.
You have to actually cut these things.
You actually had to drill a hole. You had to cut through the stone to make, it's called an eye hole. The eye hole that you can pour the grain in. That's a lot of work. Think of these are heavy stones. The other thing, of course, you had to put grooves onto them, which means you have to chisel them out. It's also a lot of work. So Rabbi Yehuda simply adds and says, yes, it's really true. Of course, you can use a rechaim, but you can't. But chila does not mean lechatchila. But chila means new. For the first time around, you can't do mekabshin or mechabshin es rechaim. Okay, either it means to drill the eye hole, or it means you can.
So what he's saying you can't do. I mean, rechaim without these holes apparently is no use at all.
Correct. Now, period. Well, correct, but let's say, I'll give you an example of what he's saying. If you have an old mill, and you have to really re-groove the grooves, because they've gotten worn down, it's not as much work as starting the grooves in the beginning.
Gotcha.
Imagine when you do, the grooves have to be made in a certain way, so you're working on a clean slate, on the stone, you need to make sure that you did it properly. But here, simply just extending it, or let's say the eye hole became stuffed. Or, as the Gemara is going to say, what if you needed a bigger eye hole? You need to expand it. Maybe you're doing a higher volume now of grinding. So whereas before it was this big, now you need to make it expand. So that's not as hard to expand the hole in the stone as to start and get down originally all the way down. So that's the Chiddush of Rabbi Yehuda. So it's a very straightforward Mishnah, and the Gemara is actually going to discuss about different types of things that are davar avad and a lot of tirchi seira that are based upon this kind of thing, because this Mishnah is really about tzorech yantif, but it has a lot of tircha. Okay. So my mechabshin, what's mechabshin mean? Rabbi Yehuda Amar menake rechaya. Menake rechaya means that you make the grooves into the stone. Okay. And in fact, as it gets older, you surely have to regroove it because it wears down. So it always has to be done. So this is mechabshin. So Rabbi Yehuda says you can't be mechabshin lechadasha. It's chila. Rabbi Chil Omer, not always a common name. Rabbi Chil Omer bas eina. Bas eina is the eye hole. That's actually a term used in the Gemara. Okay, that bat ayin that you make in the middle of the rechayim that you put the tfuah through, you put the grain through. Okay, good. So the Gemara says a question. Meisvei, mamidim tanur v'kirayim b'moed. This is exactly what our Mishnah says. Ubelvad shelo yigmor malachton. Provided that you don't actually complete it completely, right? You finish it off. That's who says the Divrei Rabbi Lazar. V'chachamim omrim af yigmor. Chacham says no. If you're making it, you make it. Finish it off. Rabbi Yehuda omer mishmo. Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of Rabbi Lazar, I guess. Right? You can set up a new millstone, but you can't do either, and that's what we're going to try to understand, either make the hole or make the grooves on a new millstone. And the final opinion says excuse me. The final opinion says you can't do none of this mechabshin, not even on an old millstone. You can't put the grooves in, and you can't even put you can't expand the eye hole.
So let's go over it again. The three are Rabbi Yehuda's first said Mamidim es achadasha, so you can put up the grindstone, you can put it there. Or you can fix, but you can. The one's Rabbi Yehuda Omer Mishmal. Let's say that one.
Rabbi. First opinion is Rabbi Lezer.
Yeah.
Says you can set up
Bilvad shelo yigmor malachto, but that's
Right.
right?
Right. You didn't finish off the oven.
Right.
Okay. Rabbi Eliezer says yigmor.
Right, they were talking about I guess,
stoves.
the three stoves. Well, yeah,
Tanur
exactly.
v'karayim.
You're not talking.
Now,
What's he talking?
Rabbi Yehuda comes and says, "Mamidim es hachadashim and mechabshim es yeshana."
So this is a stove. We're talking about a stove now, yes?
Well, it looks like it goes over to talk about.
Or is he going back to the?
It's going back to the
Rechaim.
Rechaim. Because mechabshim is only about Rechaim.
Right, that's what I thought. So what's he saying? Mamidim
So
es hachadashah.
You can set up a new mill,
Mill or millstone.
millstone, and you can either cut through the grooves or put the eye hole in an old one. But you can't do a new one.
Okay.
And then the final opinion, which is also about the millstone, ein mechabshin koliko. You can never put neither an old one nor a new one. You can't put the eye hole and you can't put the grooves in. Okay, so in other words, the first part of this Mishnah, this Brisa, is not that really of a concern for us. Mm-hmm. The concern is the second opinion, the second part, which is the Chachamim and the Yesh Omrim about, and the difference between the Chachamim and the Yesh Omrim is whether you can do mechabshin for an old millstone, but not a new one, or you can't even do it for an old one. Because last opinion say mechabshin kolikar.
Right.
So what's the issue? What's the word mechabshin mean?
Right.
So we have two opinions. Both one opinion. One opinion is you put the grooves in.
Right.
Second opinion is the eye hole. So the Gemara says, well, let's see what it really means here. According to the opinion that says mechabshim means you got to put the grooves in. So I understand there's new millstones that need to be grooved and old millstones need to be re-grooved because they get worn down. Okay? So I'm going to say the machlokas. Can you work on an old one but not a new one? Or you can't even do this on an old one.
Right.
Right? That's machlokas. El aman diamar bas eina. But the opinion that says you got to put the eye hole in. Yeshana bas eina. Yeshana bas eina lamala. So why would you ever be building an eye hole into an old stone? I already gave you the answer away. But the Gemara says, in other words, making the eye hole is something you do when you first set up a stone. You can't. You're not going to make an eye hole again. You have the eye hole.
I have it already. I see.
You might want to expand it.
Right. So the Gemara's answer is right. So the Gemara's question is, if that's the case, so what's machlokas between whether you can do a yeshana and not a yeshana? What does it mean? It makes no sense. The Gemara's answer is no. Here's the answer. I told you before. Going to koboy li arvuche tfei porta. You wanted to make it a little bit wider. Okay, so that makes sense. You had a certain width, a certain diameter, and you wanted now to use more or a different type of maybe a coarser kind of grain. So in such a case, you can. That's machlokas. Can you do it on Chol Moed or not? Okay. All right. So this is once again all about tzurchi yisera. Okay. Rav Huna. Shame lahu gavra the komenaka rechai b'chol de moada. So Rav Huna heard that there was this guy who was putting in menaker, means of nikud as a hole, right? Right. Is menaker as a hole?
Yeah, the menaker is to make a hole, I think.
Right. On an old eye stone of Chol Moed. Okay. So he said, Omar, man hai ichlal gufe de kamachel Chol Moada. May his body become desanctified. Okay, or because he has made Chol Moed into Chol.
What did he try to do again? To make us whole.
He was making the hole on an older millstone. Now, which opinion? The Yesh Omrim. The Yesh Omrim. It's not the opinion in our Mishnah. It's only the opinion we just mentioned before about the Yesh Omrim that says Ein Mechabshin Kol Ikar.
Right.
So the Gemara says, Savala ki Yesh Omrim. He must hold like the Yesh Omrim that says even on an old one you can't drill into the stone. Right. Right. Actually, menaker does not mean making a hole. Menaker means making the grooves.
Oh, the grooves.
Okay, that's what we used before.
Sorry. Okay.
So menaker is making the grooves, and he was making the grooves on an old one. So you see that he held like the Yesh Omrim. Okay. But he actually said a very trouble thing about him. Correct? He said he should become basically run away. So, okay, Darash Rav Chama. Okay.
They did some nasty things in those days.
Yes, they did. Okay. So Rav Chama said, Nokrin Rechaim b'moada. So Nokrin is from the same term as menaker, which means, of course, you can make grooves on the Rechaim on Chol Moed. Okay. Now, Mishum Rabbi Meir Omar, this gets off the topic now about Rechayim. And Rabbi Meir, they said name Rabbi Meir, feel a sus sherochev alav, vis chamor sherochev alav, litor tziponayim b'cholosh Moed. That if you have a horse that you ride on, or a donkey you ride on, so you had to actually cut the nails, the hoofs of the horse. They had to be trimmed. If they weren't trimmed, then the horse became lame, or I guess it couldn't run on the streets. So now, does this have anything to do with really Rechaim? No. It's just telling us that this was another example of work on Chol Hamoed that had a purpose, right? And yet was a lot of tzircha. Now, what purpose would it be to ride on the horse or the donkey? So this is a very big machlokas. If you look in the last Tosfos, on the page, the short Tosfos, Susha Rochim Alav, Perish B'Tosfos, L'tzorach HaMoed. It says means you had to ride the horse for something for Chol Hamoed. You had to go to the supermarket to get food for Chol Hamoed. You had to go to the next town to get a sukkah. I don't know. No, it wasn't just going for a ride in the country. She also lurkov b'chinam. So Tosfos says you can't ride on normal Chol Hamoed just for by itself. Right. This, by the way, this is sometimes quoted. People ask, "What about taking trips on Chol Hamoed?"
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So actually, we're of course makel. But I'm saying, what you see, this was riding a horse in those days was as difficult or as
I should have looked more carefully. This is Rav Steinsaltz showing him an example of a nikor. So that seems to be, according to him, the kind
Eben Rochev Shulchaim is
Yeah, but I'm saying this, I guess, is the groove here that you're talking. He says nikor, right? This is a nikor, I guess.
Correct. And there's, I guess, something in the middle to keep the stones from rolling one off the other.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah. There's some kind of like axle.
Sorry.
Okay. Now, aval. So that's about a normal donkey and a horse.
Right.
Aval chamra de rechayalo. But the donkey that's working on the rechayim, that's pulling the millstone around, right? That you can't cut the hoofs. You can't trim the hoofs. You cannot, because apparently, because the amount of tchina, the amount of grinding that you need to do for yantif, was not all that much.
Right.
So it was not. So if you have to travel long distance and the donkey and the horse needs its nails trimmed or its hoofs trimmed, it's important. It can't work. But this was simply going around a couple of times to grind up what you needed for yantiv on Chol Hamoed. Okay. And our chamor derechayalo. Now, Tosfos, the first Tosfos on the. I'm sorry, let me just do a little more. I'm sorry. Rabbi Yehuda Shari Lemishko Tufrei Lechamar Derechaya. Rabbi Yehuda, on the other hand, allowed them to cut. Tufrei means nails, but in this case, of course, it means the hoofs of the chamor of the Rechayim. And he also allowed Ulaukme Rechaya to set up a Rechayim. Which we talk about setting it up, right, for a stand. Ulamivne Rechaya. And to build a rechayim, ulemivne amas rechaya, and to build amat rechayim was like a trough that, or maybe some kind of wood that the rechayim was built on. Since it wasn't only built on the ground, you had to build some kind of raised platform. Ulemivne oraya, and to even build a corral for the animals. So all of these were considerably amount of work, but for Yantav they were permissible. Now, I was going to say that the first Tosfos on the page says that in the days of the Chachamim, they didn't have horseshoes.
No, that's true.
That's one thing about it.
Right.
That's true. They didn't have horseshoes. No.
So Tosfos says, you see from this, the Huadin Lididan, Shemutar Latakin Barzalim the Karka Kosha. And if you didn't, and it broke down, then you could make the horseshoes on Chol Hamoed itself.
So he's saying, in other words, we learned from this that in a later period,
right?
You could.
I'm sorry. I said Latakin Barzalim the Karka Kosha Mitkalkel, because the ground that we have our horses running on is very hard.
Right.
Doesn't only mean the paved, means the ground that they lived in Europe was much harder. It was a different climate. And Rishum She'ein Barzlim B'mei Chachamim, and because there were no horseshoes in the days of Chachamim, She'ein Tzorech Rak LeMishkal Tufrei, they only had to cut the nails, the hoofs, Shoyakarka Metunenet Kmo Berusia, okay, Shahayasa. So therefore, So it was easy to work on it, and therefore it's not talking about making something that would be making barzalim because they didn't need it, but in our country it is permissible to make the barzalim, the horseshoes for the horses. So that's somewhat of a modern extrapolation in days of Tosos. Okay. So at any rate, these are all things that go back to the Rechaim, and some are actually extensions beyond that. But the key common denominator is that they're talking about things that are a lot of work, but they have a tzorach hamoed, right? And that's why we said about riding the horse for the moed.
So they have a tzorach for the moed.
Yes.
And you can only do it if you actually need it for the moed.
Correct.
It's not a question. This category of work is for the purpose of.
Correct.
You actually have to have a need for it.
You have to have a need for it. And even though you could argue that it's a lot of tircha, right? I mean, we think about Shabbos, you don't say, well, I have a need for this, therefore I can light a fire. So, Chol Moed is much different. Chol Moed has ideas of Davar Ovid or Tzorach HaMoed, which permit a lot of things. Okay, now let's go continue. The next line is a little more difficult only because of the verbs. They're very, very unique terms. Rav or Rav, Shavar Lesruke Susaya. The Sruke Susaya was they had a metal comb that they would use to comb the horses.
Sure.
And this, I guess, was they were afraid of maybe drawing blood, hurting the animal. Ulamivne Arkpita. So Arkpita is, I don't remember what this is now. It's either some kind of barn or some kind of bench.
He says, leave it. No, I don't know what a ma'aka is.
A ma'aka is actually a fence.
So that's what let's say Rav Steinsaltz is translating, let's say.
Okay.
That's what he claims.
So, a trough. So Rashi translates the trough where they would put the straw out, and there are different interpretations what exactly it is. Tosa says it's a safsol. Okay, so it's all some type of thing that you needed for, I guess, feeding animals. That's arkapita. Arkpita. And then you have akrapita. And the ulamivne itzdava, and the itzdava that Rashi translates once again is Rashi says it's some kind of stone house. Tosa says it's also some kind of bench.
Yeah, that's what Rav Steinsaltz says. Right. Not sasal.
Correct. Okay, so these are all Greek words, and we learned this without knowing the reality of the facts on the ground. So this is permissible, even though it does have some kind of a lot of tircha, but I guess it's considered tzorach hamoed. Rava shara. Lemishko dama lebehema b'chol moada. Okay, so Rava allowed them to do bloodletting on animals on Chol Moed. Now, they always did bloodletting.
To try and help you.
This was considered. This was healthy.
They didn't do it unless you were sick. People just don't.
No, they did it. They did it as a maintenance to make sure that you stayed healthy.
Made a lot of sick people.
Well, but that was the belief of the ancient world.
Absolutely was the belief.
That was one of the few tricks they had in their bag.
Right. Correct.
As I say, when you're sick, but here we're talking. Maybe they. I guess what made me think of it. I obviously wasn't too, but who is it? The Maasai, right? The Maasai in Africa. They drink blood and they. Bloodlet on a regular basis so they can have the blood to drink.
No, this is about the Greek belief.
I'm sure
the Greek belief that there were 4 humors in the body, and they had to be kept in sync, in balance.
Yeah.
And if you didn't if you didn't cut open, then you got too much blood, which kind of impacted upon your psychology, your health, and so forth.
Right.
This was well existed for a long time.
Absolutely.
But the chiddush is not just for you; it's for your behema.
Right.
Okay, so that's already a chiddush, right? So the animal could go a little longer. If the animal doesn't feel so well, okay, so he won't feel so well. And Amalei Abaye says to Rava, Tanya the Messiah. It's not just you, Rava, saying this. There's a brisa that says as follows: Mekizim dam lebehema. This is talking about Chol Moed. You can do akazas dam on an animal. The monim refu lebehema b'Chol Moed. And you don't have to hold back, right? Any type of refuah for on Chol Moed. Okay, right? So
the animal's sick, you can't afford to.
But the animal's not sick. Refuah, we understand. But Makizas dam is not yet sick. Okay. Rava shara lekiskuse kirme. So this is about like ironing or dry cleaning of some sort, or some ironing. Some kind of ironing where they put some kind of weight on top of the clothing to straighten it out. That's kiskuse kirme. My taima, my sehejitu. Okay, it is work, but anyone can do it. What do you really need to know? You put the blocks on top of the pants and they get straightened out. Okay, it wasn't heat. It was simply just weight. Amrav Yislik Bar Ami, Amrav Chista. Kiture biri aser. All right, kiture biri was some kind of more skilled type of pressing of clothes. I think some of the Rishonim seem to say it's like pleats. Pleats. Right, pleats. So making a pleat on a pair of pants or on a shirt, that's a lot more complicated. It's not just simply making sure the pants are flat. Mm-hmm. So that's aser. My taima, my seumanu. It's a my seuman. Right. Of course, many times trying to differentiate what's my seuman and what's my sehedjut is like it's like a call. Sure. Right. My seumanu. Okay. So all of this is about Sorach HaMoed. Right. Now, if this wasn't Sorach HaMoed, the impression is you couldn't do it.
You shouldn't do it.
So the Gemara is going to give examples now of malachos that are permissible for Sorach HaMoed, and how do you know it's really Sorach HaMoed and not something else? Mm. These are all dealing with land and trees, and you could become collect or obstacles on your grounds.
It's a slippery slope. It sounds like that.
It's a very slippery slope. But for example, if you're cleaning up logs on your property, are you cleaning up logs because you want to make the property good? Or are you cleaning up logs because you want to make a fire for Yantav, to cook food? Right. So the slippery slope is there are certain giveaways that tell you what it is. There are certain, if you watch carefully, you can tell what the guy is doing, and then you can convict him or support him. So Amarava, man de mitkal ara. Okay, if a person wants to mitkal is to, I believe, straighten out. You want to level the ground. So adaita de beidari. So mitkal actually is like digging. So a person wants to digging on the ground. So adaita de beidari. If it is for making a threshing floor, sure, it's permissible. Adaita de ara arsa. If you're trying to make the ground better, more level, it's wrong. So when's it going to be permissible? You make a threshing floor because you have to thresh the grain to make it into, then bring it to the mill to have it for Yantav. So this guy is.
Why didn't you do this before?
Do this before Yantav, exactly. This is crazy.
This doesn't seem to be the sort of thing that is a last minute need.
Right. What? You have to build a whole threshing.
So I don't know how to answer that except to say that grinding was something that happened every day.
Yeah.
So it's possible that but it doesn't mean you have to make this big staging ground. Maybe you just need to take a little couple of grains of wheat. So you don't want to cut the wheat before you have the wheat there, or you don't want to make it to flour too early. It'll get mealy, you get moldy, it'll get wet. So therefore you kept the wheat. When you needed it, you built this threshing floor, you jumped on it and you separated the chaff and then you took it to the mill. It's a very hands-on society.
I know, but enough's enough.
But the question is, you see this guy doing this, is he doing this for Yantav or not? What's he doing it for? Mm-hmm. And because if he does it for Beidari, for making a threshing floor, it's fine. If he's doing it for the ground, it's not good. What's he doing? He's digging in order to straighten out the land, to level out the land. There's different bumps and humps. Right. So Gemara says, here's the secret to know what's going on. Mulaya b'mulaya v'nitza b'nitza. Okay. You're digging from a pile. Mulaya is like a hill, like a pile of dirt, and you're putting it into the pile. Rashi says it means you're putting it next to the pile. I have a pile of dirt, and I dig into the pile, and I put the dirt next to the pile. Right. So instead of having one pile like this, I now have two piles like this. Right. Yeah. So that makes sense. That's already like to build something, a staging ground. You'll see what the opposite is in a moment. Or nitza benitza, or I have a hole. And I dig the hole, I dig into the hole, and I deposit the dirt into the hole. So for example, think of it like this. I have a hole, I dig around the edges of the hole, and then I take the dirt that I've dug and I put it on the bottom. Okay. So what have I done? Instead of having a very drastic hole, I've now made a hole that's more shallow, and I've also raised the level. Okay. So that's clearly not about ground, that's about trying to make something for me to use at that point. That's how the Rishonim try to understand what this means. Mulai b'mulai v'nitza b'nitza. So if you're doing that, adaita the veidaris. If that's the case, you're doing it for making a threshing floor. Okay. Shokal mulaya v'shada b'nitza. But if I take the dirt out of the pile, the mound, and I put it then into a hole. Okay, that's clearly not really, that's more interested in making the land, the field flat. In the first case, it's much more localized. I take from the mountain and put it next to it. I take from the hole and put it back into the hole.
Right.
So I'm working with something right there. But when I'm taking the high part of the ground and putting it to the low part of the ground, I'm not dealing with what I want to do for a threshing floor. I'm trying to straighten it out so I can plow it, I can bring my equipment and so forth. So that in such a case, Mulaya v'shada b'nitza adaita diara. Okay, good. So we'll do a few more of these. V'yama Rava, Haiman de Zachi Zichi. Okay, Zachi Zichi is collecting wood. Okay, collecting things that are obstacles on the course, on the grounds. Okay, so you got eitzim katanim, and you're going around collecting them. So daite tsivi shari. If you're collecting them do you want to make a fire? That's permissible. Adaiti diara, if you're collecting them because you want to improve the ground, that's a weekday. It's not a yontif kind of thing. So how do you know what he's doing? Hechidami. Shakil ravavei v'shavik zutre adaiti tsivi. If you collect the big pieces of wood and you leave behind the small piece of wood, the twigs, that shows you're really collecting the wood for a fireplace, right? Because you're leaving behind the mess. Shakil ravavei v'zutre. If you collect the big pieces and the small pieces, adaiti diara. Okay, that's clearly that you're using it for the ground itself. Okay, we'll do one more. The Amarava, Haiman the Patach Ma'al Ara. Person lets water into a field. So what's he using it for? So Adaite the Kavre Shari. So apparently in the water were fishes. So they would kind of draw the water out of the lake and have it run into the field. What would happen to the water? The water would run off or be absorbed and leave behind the fish, and they could go collect the fish. That's how they did fishing.
So Kavre
is fish. So that's okay. Adaiti diara, if you're simply watering the field, that's aser. So how do you know which is which? Hechidami. So pasach trei bavi. If you open two gates, one on either side, chad miloi v'chad mititoi, you have an upper gate and a lower gate. You've got a water on top, and it goes into the field and runs down. So adaiti the kavre. So the water is running off. Your intention is not to keep it on the field because you have a gate to let it into the field and the gate on the bottom that you open to let it move out. What gets stuck behind? Fish. That's the clear. On the other hand, pasach chad bava, if you only open one gate, the water collects and stays on the ground, adaita diara. Okay? So that's all about really for the land itself. Okay, there's a few more of these, and the Gemara kind of wraps up and gives more directions.
You wonder how many people had fields like this. I mean, you have to do it even if there's only two people, right?
So you kind of
how many people had gates with water, with fish? No, I'm just saying, hey, as I said, even if you had two, you still had to take care of it. I suspect most people didn't have this kind of a thing, but who knows?